Whoops. What is that? I can't get this thing off of here. And welcome into the Skull Session, Ohio State Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Juck. That's the man, Mark Givler. And we, of course, are still celebrating, like you saw in the intro, off the big Texas game. Mark, how we doing today?
Good. Heck of an opener for Ohio State. I think a lot of unknowns. Wasn't really sure what to expect from a lot of different people. And I think they got the performances that they needed to get from the guys, from Julian Sayin and from the new defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. And so you're almost playing with house money right now for the Buckeyes as far as getting a win like that to start the year.
It is a great one to go ahead and log in that W category. Got a lot of things you can work on, a lot of film on that. And you got 4 full weeks till you go out to Washington with Grambling in Ohio and a bye week. I mean, couldn't have started off better. I really don't think. And for the start on that defense with everything we saw from Patricia, wow, does that look like a home run hire so far? So far, so good. But of course, we had some huge visits this weekend, and that's why we wanted to come on and kind of talk about some of those guys, some of those visitors, as well as maybe recap at the end where you and I were both last Friday as we both took in a couple of commits in the 2026 class. So with that said, obviously we could go a ton of different directions on guys to start with, but a couple of the Ohio offensive linemen were in, and maybe we start there and start with some of the defensive linemen. I know a lot of people want to hear about those guys, but as far as those, there's 3 Ohio offensive linemen so far that have offers in this class of 2027. Take us through those guys.
Yeah, the one who was not on campus Saturday is Khalil Johnson from Moeller. That he had a game, so that was not. It wasn't just not being interested in coming to the game. He had his own game down in. I think they were playing down in Ironton in that showcase.
And he'll be in next week, right?
Yeah, that's the expectation.
Okay.
So he's been up several times. Like he's been around a lot. But Mason Wilt from St. Clairsville is a guy they offered back over the summer, and he was on campus. There's a front page story on him on BuckeyeHuddle.com. Talked to him quite a bit. He was loving the atmosphere, getting to talk to Coach Bowen and getting kind of just the whole experience. And so that was nice for him. And Ohio State obviously in pretty good shape there. And also Kellen Weimer out of Liberty Center High School. That's a small school, like powerhouse right now. They went 15-1 last year, lost to Ironton in the state championship. They're going to be very good chance of getting back there again this year. This was his first game day visit, and he also was also super impressed with the atmosphere. These are guys that they lead for early. I think one of the major things coming out of the weekend is that Tyler Bowen's got this set up very nicely with 3 Ohio kids that he's offered that they lead for right now. You've got a guy like Jimmy Kalis in Pittsburgh, which is 3 hours down the road. You've got a few other guys you're looking at that are within driving distance of Columbus. You've got some other names that aren't like perfect driving distance, but you're not going into like Florida or Texas or Georgia. Got a guy like Brody McNeil in Virginia, for example.
Right.
So these are all like gettable linemen who are very, very highly thought of. And again, you're maybe avoiding some of that like unpredictability that can come with recruiting like a Florida, Texas, Georgia kid where it's just 5-6 national powers going at it. Well, these are maybe a little bit more regional recruitments, even though they're still very good players.
This is something that I've just banged my head against the table for years about. Like we watch Notre Dame every year employ this very strategy you're talking about here and have super successful offensive lines doing it. And then, we've got mid-range 4-star quality prospects all over the Midwest. Why are we going after that same caliber of prospect in Florida and Georgia? I've never understood it. I really like the strategy he's employing here. Kellen Weimer, I've heard great things about him so far. That's the one out of Liberty Center. Now that's up by Toledo, if I'm not wrong. And I heard that he's from a Michigan family. They haven't offered yet. That's got me a little concerned. But yeah, he looks like a real good one. But Jimmy Kalis is obviously Kyle Kalis's younger half brother. Kyle Kalis went to Michigan, and I'm not sure if they've gotten in on that one or not, but I think he's been to Ohio State about 5 times. I've talked to him several times. His sister now goes to Ohio State, and he looks like a real likely possibility to end up in this class to me from everything I have felt from him. Like, he loves it, loves Bowen, loves everything going on about Ohio State, and haven't talked to him since the visit, but that's one I'm certainly looking out for. But I do love the strategy, and it's nice when you can grow a couple up in the state here for sure.
Yeah, it's a deep group again, just like kind of 26 is. So there's a lot of options. They've identified 3 obviously so far. Who knows if that'll turn into more, but they're also, I guess, maybe differently than this cycle, current cycle, is that they've offered some more guys that are maybe more like driving range guys, where it's not like, okay, we'll take 2 or 3 from Ohio and then we'll try and get Florida or Texas or, this or that. There's, I think, maybe some more reasonable options there. There's some guys from Pennsylvania. Obviously, Kalis is from Pennsylvania, but there's some other guys from Pennsylvania that they really like to get, that they're kind of in on. We'll see kind of where those trend in the next 6 months. But yeah, it's looking like they're not going to have to work as hard in terms of, again, talking high 4 to 5-star battles in Texas and Florida and Georgia, where it's just really hard to bat a high percentage.
Absolutely. Speaking of Pennsylvania, and we'll get to defensive line. I know everybody wants to talk about defensive line. Pennsylvania has the number 1 running back in the country in Come On Spell, out of McKeesport. He is phenomenal, a little bit shorter, not shorter, but he's 5'10". He's not the stereotypical 6 foot to 6'1", like that prototype that you always see, 210 pounds. Dynamic as heck, been committed to Penn State for, I think, over a year now. And it seemed like, man, kid from Pennsylvania, Penn State's rolling. But he came out recently and said, basically, there's 5 schools that could flip me. Ohio State was one of those schools. He comes in visits for Texas, as does their number 1 target at running back, who we've talked about plenty, and that's David Gabriel-George. And David Gabriel-George had a great visit, spent a lot of time with his family and Coach Bowen after the game, always has great things to say. Do you see any movement with Come On Spell? How do you feel this is going with that? Yeah,
like I think Ohio State's made a good impression there. Certainly the visit, you come into an atmosphere like that, and just the fans and the attention and everything around that game, I think it is always a helpful thing. I'm not super optimistic that they're going to be able to flip him. I think Penn State is still the most likely destination where he's obviously committed. I think this is probably going to be a thing that continues into the spring and maybe next summer as far as his recruitment goes. And I think David Gabriel-George is the guy that they're most high on. I think that would be their number 1 guy. So if they can get David, do you wonder what does that mean for their pursuit of Come On Spell, who's fantastic as well, but I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that's going to actually happen, but we've seen stranger things.
For sure. Look, I love David. I mean, I'm talking about Come On Spell as being the number 1 back. I think David's number 2 or number 3. Either way, it's a pick your poison. But David is a little bigger. I love that he has really latched on to Carlos Loughlin's style of coaching, because I feel like when a kid comes in and sees a guy like Loughlin coaching the way he coaches, which is, it's tough. He coaches those guys tough. He demands physicality. He's very demanding of them. And if they look at that and they're drawn to that, that's a kid that's got something in him that I like. And he's talked about his kind of military upbringing and his family, and he's drawn to that. Seems like an absolute perfect fit. Now, there is a bit of a language barrier. Am I right?
Yeah, not so much with David at this point. David's English has become very good since moving to the United States. And he even said when we talked to him at camp over the summer, he said, being in the recruiting process has helped his English because he's got to communicate with all these coaches and everything else. So not so much there, but his parents really don't speak much English at all. And so his aunt and his uncle do. They're very fluent. And so he's able to kind of go through them a little bit. The aunt and uncle actually help mom and dad and get everyone on the same page, making sure nothing gets lost in translation. But yeah, it's funny. You know, he's French Canadian. If you couldn't tell by the name, so he's actually not from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's from Quebec. So there's been a bit of a learning curve there for him and his family in terms of getting used to communicating, primarily in English with all these coaches.
And did he just come down to Baylor for football? Like that was his first step coming down to the States?
Yeah, like he went down to Baylor school it's a very prestigious boarding school. So he's getting a great education there as well. But yeah, they kind of knew like, hey, could he get signed out of Canada? Yes. I mean, there are kids getting signed out of Canada, but like Max LeBlanc, Ohio State tight end is a very similar situation. And he went to Baylor school. So like it just, if you're going to do this, if you're a Canadian and you're going to make this move, why not make a move to like a prestigious boarding school where you can get a really high level education on top of it? So that was the whole focus of that was, we needed to get him into the States. And then if we're going to do that, let's make sure academics are coming first too.
It just dawned on me. Shakai Mills-Knight also was Canadian, who the Buckeyes were recruiting a little bit, went to Ole Miss, running back last year out of the Baylor school. So they got a little pipeline. Yeah. You know what else they got that I heard, Mark, off topic? They got an 8th grader by the name of something Manning. He's Peyton's son. So we've got this coming again while Arch is in the news. But interesting stuff there. I do want to hit on tight end, as we've got a couple tight ends offered in the class from the state of Ohio. One of them in Jordan Karhoff, who I'm sure you've probably seen plenty by now, being down there in Columbus. He's RJ Day's teammate at the Sales. And then we got D'Angelo White out of Illa St. Joe's. And in addition to that, the number 1 or 2 tight end in the country, Brock Williams, Keenan Bailey's gotten really tight with him. Brady Edmonds is recruiting him really hard. And it seems right now like it's Georgia and Ohio State as his 2 clear leaders. Where do you see that going with such a talented crew, seemingly all really right there for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Certainly they would take 2. I don't know if could they do this in a way where they can get 3 in. They could configure the numbers that way. I mean, especially with some of the veterans moving on the current roster and with the extra scholarships they'll have moving forward. I think that's always easier said than done. It's great to sit here and talk about taking 3. Well, who's the 3rd guy and why would he do that? Kind of thing when you're talking about 3 high level guys. But yeah, that's going to be fascinating. The Williams domino, I think, is going to be huge. This becomes fairly simple to me. If he goes to Georgia or somewhere else, this becomes pretty easy to me. I have to say I'm a little intrigued by Karhoff as like a pass rusher too. Now,
really?
I don't know if he has any interest in that. I haven't heard that Ohio State's really that interested in that, but like he's got a kind of that edge rusher body to him. I think he'd be interesting on defense too. I don't know if that's even something that would be in the cards at all, but yeah, I'm with you. It's a fascinating situation to kind of see how they massage all this. But again, I think Brock Williams is kind of the big domino because he does make it simple if he goes somewhere else. The kid from Cleveland's, I think, tremendous. I think he's super. I saw he was a 3-star on one of the sites the other day. I couldn't believe it.
Crazy, right?
I think he's one of the top 5 or 6 players in Ohio. So,
yeah, he's I mean, just wild, big.
He's not big. He's like, he's not like Karhoff's got like 20, 30 pounds to put on. D'Angelo's big.
Yeah. Big athlete. Bo Jackson's former teammate at Illa St. Joe's. And Bo, David Gabriel George, back to him, built a little more like Bo than come on, spell a little bit squattier, spark pluggier build. But no, I love the options here at tight end. I love what Keenan's done. I'm talking about, Karhoff potentially playing defense. I actually think Brock Lennon would have been a hell of a defender. His traits playing defense were pretty freaky. But these 2 freshman tight ends, Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon, who we're going to, I don't know if we'll see much of him this year. We got to see Nate Roberts blocking on a 4th and goal as a fullback in game 1. And I just think what we've seen Keenan Bailey do with this tight end has been tremendous. And he's really made it a destination now for a lot of these young tight ends. Seeing 5 tight ends played against Texas. That's nuts.
Yeah, they've got, we were kind of talking about this, like people, you talk about Ohio State, wide receivers, defensive backs, there's a lot of position groups I think jump out at you, but kind of quietly kind of thought maybe that tight end room, not quite the star power of some of the other rooms, but maybe the deepest position on the roster right now in terms of the gaps, from 1 to 4, 1 to 5, whatever. They seem to have a handful of guys who can play and that obviously that will play.
Heading to the defensive line, which is, a topic that a lot of Buckeye fans want to talk about. When you looked at that huge list of visitors that they had coming in, 100 some names, wasn't a lot of defensive line prospects. I got a lot of comments about that over the last week that of all positions, not to have a ton of visitors. It seemed odd to many that one wasn't loaded up, but a couple of the guys that did come in, Ray Perez, obviously, who is from Columbus Academy, growing up, moving up the boards, and a kid who busted his butt at multiple camps over the summer to earn his offer. What are your thoughts on Ray as I pull him up for everybody here? He is now the 233rd overall player in the country, which is fantastic. Listed at 6'5", 240. You think that's a pretty accurate listing for him?
Might be bigger. He's big.
Really?
Yeah. He's not under 6'5", and he's not under 240.
Nice.
Yeah. I think there's a chance he grows into a 3-tech. Super high effort kid, very athletic, very long, still has technical stuff, leverage play, pad level type stuff that he's working on. Seemed to soak everything in that Larry Johnson was teaching him and kept coming back to camps over the summer and learning more and more. I really like him long term. Is he going to be like an Edric Houston, day one you can roll him out there? I'm not ready to go in that direction, but I think as you project him to year 2 or 3 in college, I think he projects very well. It's really hard for guys with his size and athleticism and motor to fail. Normally it's, you either don't have the athleticism or you don't have the motor or whatever it is. He's got everything there to be a really good player. So I'm very, very intrigued by him long term. I think he's going to be, as one of our commenters said, Ray is 6'6". Like I said, he's not under 6'5". So he's 6'5.5", 6'6". I think he's, now I don't know if basketball has taken any weight off, but I think he was pushing almost 250 at one point this summer. So I don't know if workouts and fall, conditioning in fall camp, you can lose. Guys go into fall camp and drop 10 pounds with August practices and everything. But he's very, very high level motor, very, very high character. Just feels like a guy who has a very, even though he's still raw physically, feels like a guy who has a very high floor because of all his intangibles.
You put in all those intangibles, which a kid who clearly seems to want to be a Buckeye pretty bad with that kind of effort and that kind of motor. That seems like a very likely candidate to end up in this class of 2027. And I'm pretty thrilled about that one. Moving on to one of the top guys in the entire class, Chris Whitehead. Chris is I think he is now, ranked top 5 edge in the country. Chris, a kid out of, where's he at? Carolina?
Virginia.
Okay. Now you went talk to Chris on Southern Swing. Tell us about Chris.
Yeah. Very much your prototype edge build. He's long, he's athletic. He's got a phenomenal first step off the snap. Really can use his hands well already. He's pretty polished already. Great motor. I got to see a lot of him. We spent some time with him and his younger brother, Isaiah Whitehead, who's a 2028 offensive lineman to know.
Yes.
A really, really, really good offensive lineman. in 28. Got to spend some time with them. Then I got to see Chris at the Future 50, the Under Armour Future 50 camp in Florida, which is where it's not exactly the top 50 rising juniors in the country, but it's close to it. It's 50 elite junior prospects, and he had a good weekend there. I think we're going to talk about another guy here who I think Ohio State may have a little bit of a better chance with right now. I think some other schools have gotten off to maybe a faster start with Chris. But yet he's been to Ohio State now twice, and he continues to have the dialogue. I think Larry Johnson, since the contact period has started for these guys in 27, I think Larry Johnson's picked things up a little bit in terms of communication. So that one's going to be an interesting battle. There's going to be a lot of maybe schools you'd expect to be involved in that one in terms of some SEC programs, even like South Carolina, who's kind of recruited that part of the country very well.
Doing good.
Penn State is always a school you think of when you think of kids from the state of Virginia possibly being involved. So there's going to be a lot of heavy hitters involved there, but Ohio State's definitely a school of interest. And then again, I think Chris and Isaiah, do I think they're a pure package deal? No. Do I think whoever gets Chris is going to have a leg up with Isaiah? Yes.
Yeah, and you talked to Isaiah on the Southern Swing as well. I recall those interviews. Both seem like really, really good kids. Culture fits as well.
Very much so.
And the other guy you were mentioning, I believe you're talking about Anthony Sweeney, who is another stud. That's a top 4 edge in the country. Now up to a top 50 overall player. Could see this come off as a 5-star if he keeps on track where he's at. This might be the guy that is the all-in guy, that prize jewel that we see the Buckeyes go after.
Yeah, he's a guy they've really pushed for the last few months. They really seem to be going all in on him. Fahim Delane's high school, so that's not going to hurt. They broke into good counsel there with Fahim. And, the Maryland connections with Larry Johnson is always a good thing. Just his background in Maryland, a drivable distance away. So you're not necessarily, again, having to go down to, try and fight these battles in Atlanta or, Miami or something like that, which is always helpful. So I think, look, Tank, I talked to Tank even before his visit. He's very high on Ohio State early on. I think he's an unbelievable player. He's a little bit, physically, I think a little more advanced than Chris Whitehead. I think he's got probably an extra 10 or 15 pounds of muscle on him right now. What that means today, they're a year and a half from reporting. Chris could catch up, but very physically impressive kid at 6'4", 6'4.5", 230 pounds right now. And again, I view him. I know people are going to say, well, he's 230 right now. It's something to watch. What is he going to be, in a year and a half? But I view him as a true defensive end. I don't think he's a future 3 tech like maybe Ray Perez is.
Okay, and you just kind of glossed that over. He goes by Tank. I like this. I like the sound.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, Tank. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sometimes I just fly off with what they go by.
So you and I have both talked about edges, and neither of us feel like this is in the dire straits. A lot of people do because of our opinions on Zion Grady and Epi Satanile, who both look like these are guys maybe ready to contribute this year in some instances. In addition to that, Kari Wilder looks like an absolute hit. And, whether or not they land another edge in this class of 2026, I don't know. I don't know. Have you heard of any names pop up? I haven't heard a thing.
There's not a ton of buzz right now. What I've kind of continued to say and hear is that they're going to be very, very, very locked in on the decommitment market over the next couple months as the coaching carousel looks. There's going to be we don't know who they are yet. The season's got to play out, but there's going to be coaches who get fired, coaches who change jobs. There's going to be, in my opinion, NIL promises that aren't going to be able to be kept. And so I think there's going to be a rush of availability of players that are currently not available. And so they're going to keep a very, very, very close eye on that. There's
not a bad position to be.
No, you're kind of in a bit of a situation where you get to be a little bit of the hunter and not the hunted.
Yeah.
down the stretch. There's been a couple of names that have been tossed out to me, but like nothing concrete. Like I'll throw this one out there just because, and I hope I don't butcher his name. I've gotten pretty fluent in how to pronounce the Samoan names, but I still run into a couple where I'm like, I don't know. But Samote Katoanga is a USC commit, a defensive lineman. There's been a little bit of buzz that Ohio State's kind of sneaking around the chicken coop there and trying to kick some tires there. We'll see what comes. Nothing's come of that yet. We'll see if anything does. That's just a name I've heard they're interested in. But yeah, they're going to be very vigilant on who is maybe a little unhappy with their situations come October, November.
I can't tell you how happy I would be to snipe a Polynesian kid from USC. I would just
pretty well. They've worked out pretty well at Ohio State. That's for sure.
Yeah. Get a little pipeline. Let's keep them coming. To the defensive backfield, I think that there is a guy from modern day named Danny Lang who has been just enamored with Ohio State. When he got his offer last year, he said, I cried and hugged them. And ever since then, he has just, kind of spouted Ohio State from the top of the mountaintop, worn the Ohio State headgear at his games. What do you think of Danny as a player? And what do you think of the odds of the Buckeyes getting the top 200 overall commit Danny Lang out of modern day now that the curse is broken, double broken?
Yes, the curse is broken. And so now we get to sit here and talk about how they're going to get all of those guys now. But, first of all, Danny was super impressive last week. I saw him in person against St. Thomas Aquinas. I was down in Florida. Danny was phenomenal. I love the way he plays. He is like he's not quite as tall, but he plays like Davis and Igbinosun in terms of crashing in down against the run, being physical, not just being a coverage guy, being a run support guy, being, loves those contested passes. He's had a great matchup with Julius Jones Jr. at St. Thomas Aquinas, who I think is one of the best receivers in the 2027 class. I think Julius Jones Jr. is unbelievable. Now he's probably a Notre Dame lock. That's where his dad played. But that was a phenomenal matchup. I thought Danny more than held his own against that. And Danny even told me, he said he didn't play a lot of corner last year at modern day. I just positional needs, was playing some safety. So he hasn't been playing a ton of corner. Now that's where Ohio State's recruiting him to play corner. So he is a corner long-term, but making that transition and doing a good job on Julius Jones Jr. and kind of winning his share of matchups there. I love him. And I think Ohio State, and I don't say this lightly because I've always been I need to kind of see the modern day curse broken to believe it. So I've always kind of had that little thing, even with KDW, I was like, okay, I like what I'm hearing, but I still need to see it actually happen. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that I think it's going to be very tough to beat Ohio State on this one with Chris Henry Jr. and Cade Nixon-Wyatt in his ear. And you got to remember, these are guys, these practice battles. I was talking to Danny about it. These practice battles are intense with those two and Danny. And Danny's very much wanting, I think, to continue that. I think he's very much in that iron sharpens iron mentality, and I think he would love to continue to practice against those types of receivers at Ohio State every day. And so I think Ohio State's in a really solid position right now.
That sounds great, and that all sounds like it lines up very, very well. To an in-stater who I think, I don't want to say we've been cautioning, but maybe not to look at this kid like quite the in-stater that you would normally think, and that's Ace Alston, who is a total stud cornerback out of the Cincinnati area and, ranked the number 12 corner in the country now, but also has families from Alabama. They came up here. He's not your typical, been in Ohio several generations, grew up a Buckeye fan type of kid. And it's certainly already looking like a very national recruitment for Ace. I don't know how much the Buckeyes have the geographical edge, if any at all, on this one. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you're right. I think this is not a lock for Ohio State by any stretch of the imagination. He should not and cannot be looked at as really a true Ohio kid in the sense of the family ties to the southeast part of the country. Did not grow up like a diehard Ohio State fan, watched some SEC schools, watched the Buckeyes too, but, not a kid who's just going to crawl on his hands and knees to Columbus to play for Ohio State. So you have to truly recruit him. You have to win the recruiting battle. Tim Walton has done a very good job so far. Tim Walton has made Ace feel like very much like a priority. I've talked to Ace numerous times. I actually, Coach Evan Dreyer down there at Anderson introduced me to Ace and Antoine Higgins, who they've also offered going into their freshman years. So I've known those guys a while and kind of got to know about them and their games and everything. And Ace is going to give Ohio State every opportunity to win the recruitment. So I don't want to sit here and say, well, he's just not going to Ohio State because he didn't grow up a Buckeye fan. And so, but they've, it's not one of those things where it's like, if Ohio State just doesn't screw it up, they win the battle, like with some of these other Ohio kids. That's not how this one's going to go. They are going to have to win it. And again, I like what Tim Walton's doing here, just kind of treating him like a 5-star from Texas or Florida, like you would, just like you would treat Devin Sanchez kind of thing, like trying to get him up on campus, getting to know his family, just continuing to build the relationship. I thought this was a good step forward on Saturday, not because of the final score, but look, the secondary was lights out. The corners were tremendous. Jermaine Matthews, fellow Cincinnatian, maybe one of the players of the game, big time game there. The depth chart actually sets up very nicely if you're a 27. A lot of these guys are going to be off to the NFL out of the program by the time he gets there. It's not like a bottleneck or anything at corner right now if you're a 27 kid. So he sees all that, and then you see Devin Sanchez out there in crunch time as a true freshman. So he also knows, like, hey, the best players are going to play for Tim Walton and for Mark Guerreri. So, like, there was a really good combination of things, I think, that happened for Ohio State on Saturday that are, going to help.
Yeah, some very good selling points there. While we're on it, let's talk about his teammate there, Antoine Higgins, one of the best linebackers in the country. Do you see him as a linebacker long term?
I could see him as especially, so this is always my thing with Antoine, is we kept hearing about like these jack positions and, all this other stuff with like the stand-up edge rusher, and it never happened. And by the way, I'm going to take a look. Let me take a quick victory lap. The people who said Larry Johnson was preventing Jim Knowles from running odd fronts, can we go back and watch the tape on Saturday? Did Matt Patricia have to run that by Larry Johnson? It doesn't sound like Larry Johnson was keeping anybody from running an odd front, by the way. We saw on Saturday with Matt Patricia's defense. So I think a lot of that was overblown. I think now that we've seen that they are going to run some odd fronts, I think Antoine Higgins as an edge rusher is beyond intriguing. And he does a lot of that stuff for Anderson. He is explosive off the edge. He's every bit of 6'3". He's like 225, 230. He's not going to be 6'5", 275. He's not going to be Joey Bosa or Chase Young, but he could easily be 6'3.5", 245, 250, just like Jonathan Cooper was. And I could totally see that. And so for the people who are like scared about defensive end recruiting, there's another guy that I think you have to at least consider. I mean, he's a bigger body than CJ Hicks. So, I think that's very intriguing for me. We'll see if Ohio State agrees. I don't know that yet. But the fact that they are running odd fronts now makes me think that's a real possibility.
There doesn't seem to be anything off the table. When I saw Caden Curry lining up as a nose tackle, all right, all bets are off, man. We're all over the place now. Like, anybody is anywhere. I mean, we're going to see, I don't know, this is where you play and that's all you play. That's kind of by the wayside with this whole front seven. They were all everywhere. It was really fun to see, obviously advantageous if you got the players smart enough and you can teach it and get it installed. Not everybody can run like that. And I was so impressed that they were able to do that week one with all the moving parts. One guy messes up his assignment and it's cooked. Really, really impressive stuff. And I think very, very advantageous for recruiting because, a lot of these guys want to play different spots. They want to get sacks. They want to go after that. So good stuff with that.
Yeah, and just real quick, I would like to make a point where Tony Girdman put this on Twitter. He did a graph, a chart of where
he did. I got it, Mark. I'll pull it up.
Okay. He did a chart of where, because this is actually my comp for Higgins, is Arvell Reese. And look at where Arvell's lining up on a lot of these plays. He's obviously the circle out there. And you see a lot of him lining up on the edge. You see him lining up inside over top a guard or a tackle. That is what Antoine Higgins can do. So if nothing else, even if Higgins is considered a linebacker by Ohio State, look for him to play that type of role where he's lined up as an edge rusher where they move him around in different gaps. He's a very, very instinctual player, a guy who like gets north and south in a hurry, explosive. Like Arvell is kind of my comp. I had questions about Arvell coming out of high school in terms of his position. Like, would he grow into an edge? Would he be a true linebacker? And the answer under Matt Patricia is that, well, he's going to play everywhere, which I think is which is the best answer because Arvell's a freak. And I think Higgins fits that type of body type.
That sounds fantastic. Wide receivers, obviously there are a plethora of great options, as we have got, I think 5 of the top 9 wide receivers in the country here in border states and in Ohio, in Jameer Brown and Monshun Sales and Dakota Garan up in Michigan, Monshun's in Indiana. These guys were all in town. You've got Eric McFarland currently in the class of 2028, and there's been talks of him maybe reclassifying. They were all in town, and they were all taking this in. The Bucs have offered recently Brian Porter. That is Quincy Porter's little brother. He's a class of 2027 out of Bergen Catholic. Maybe an interesting prospect to take a look at. Not a super highly rated guy like Quincy, but I could definitely see him in the class.
Quincy was a late riser.
Yeah, it was a riser for sure. So what do you see? Any thoughts on any of those wide receivers early? I mean, it's almost like they're going to get some great ones, like who's it going to be though?
Yeah. Like, look, I think Dakota Garant is just a pure Michigan Ohio State battle. No pun intended there, but
okay.
I think that's going to be a straight head to head. I think if Ohio State could have their druthers, it would be Monshun Sales. It would be Dakota, obviously Jameer Brown. And then, we'll see what Eric McFarland does in terms of a reclassification. But obviously I believe they think as highly of Eric McFarland as any receiver currently in high school football right now. So these are guys that are clear priority targets right now. I like where they stand with Sales, not to the point where I'm like calling it, because that is going to be a hyper competitive recruiting battle, but they got a lot of things working for them there. Obviously, like the receiver room, like getting into, being able to come in on the heels of that great class with like Jeremiah and those guys, and kind of having a bit of an open depth chart, kind of beyond this current group we have seen here in Columbus, mm-hmm. and being able to step in and maybe get some early minutes, the development of Brian Hartline, but the geography is going to help too. They're able to, they keep getting him on campus. If you were in Texas, they wouldn't be able to do this, but
right.
In Indianapolis, it's less than 3 hours from door to door. So like this is helping them tremendously. The Dakota Garant thing's interesting because I think he loves Ohio State, but he's also like a Michigan guy. And it's like, right. What do I do here? Like, what does Michigan look like this year? Probably is going to help determine things. Like how much would he actually play with Bryce Underwood? Probably not a ton, but that's going to be something maybe that gets factored in there as well. But I think that's going to be a very heated battle. I know Ohio State would very much love to get Dakota out of Michigan and not just to get it, not just to stick it to Michigan, but just because they think he's a tremendous player. And they got a 5-star kid behind him too. They got another stud receiver there behind him at Harper Woods.
Okay. Well, yeah, we want to get the leg up in that school then. He's excellent. I've seen some quotes about Ohio State. Seems like him and his family really like it. And if all things were even, it would feel to me like Ohio State was the leader right now if he wasn't from Michigan and grew up there. So that's going to be a tough one. What's interesting about Indiana as I'm sitting here and we're talking from Mylan Graham to Jaquaden Guilford, now Monshun Sales. I mean, that's quite the run of wide receivers out of the state of Indiana right there. But Monshun, a 6'5", big body wide receiver. And then Eric McFarland, a 5'8". I am so impressed that we are seeing a guy in this day and age where, the trend is big body wide receivers. And we're seeing a guy 5'8" be so dominant that he's at the top of the rankings. And I asked you before the show, your opinion on him. You've seen him in person. You feel the same way. He's that dominant. And that's just wild to me.
Yeah, so just everyone's got their own kind of personal preferences, personal biases when they look at players and evaluate players. I'm always going to want the 6'2", 6'3" receiver. That's like, since I was like in high school, like I was like, I always wanted Ohio State or whoever, the Eagles or whoever, to get the 6'2", 6'3" receivers. I've always been enamored with the bigger guys, but there is something ridiculously special about Eric McFarland, even at 5'8". He was the best receiver they brought in for camp in the summer, regardless of class. Explosive, like doesn't even begin. Like he is like Zion Branch on steroids, or I'm sorry, Zach Branch. Sorry, wrong Branch. He is like Zach Branch. Right. Just like everything Zach Branch can do, from that change of direction to the explosiveness, but on like at a different gear. It's terrifying. And he can line up. I saw him line up outside against bigger corners and no problems. Just very unique because he fits the profile of a guy I'd usually be like, well, how's Ohio State going to use him? Or, because that was kind of like that. Or another guy like Wan'Dale Robinson in the past when they were really in on that one. I'm like, is that going to fit? And, we know Mookie Cooper didn't work. Like, and I just, I've always been a little bit uneasy about those types of players, body type wise, but I am not the least bit. I have zero questions about Eric McFarland. I think he's fantastic.
That is so impressive to me. I mean, it really is, especially in this era. Now he's down at IMG, and we're gonna see him against top-notch competition, and apparently he's still gonna shine against that, which will be really fun to watch. Moving on to quarterback, Wonderful Mons was in town. Wonderful is wonderful, and he is a large man, and he looks like he's 23 years old, and he just might be the top quarterback target in 2028 for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think, and he goes by Champ, so we'll throw another nickname out there, because he's actually the fourth. His dad played professional baseball. His grandfather played in the NFL. So he's a third generation, has a chance to be a third generation professional athlete, but he is, I think, everything Ohio State wants off the field. His composure, his general, like, even keeledness, his leadership, super mature. We went down and interviewed him.
Lake Vero, right?
Is it? At Vero Beach, yeah.
Vero Beach, okay.
Where TJ Alford went.
Right.
And so I had not talked to him at that point before. But he was around, and Coach was like, yeah, you can sit down and talk to him. I said, okay, great. And you never know how those are going to go, because at that point he's like finishing up his freshman year of high school, and you're just like, okay, like, is he gonna be able to like speak in front of a camera? Because a lot of these kids get super nervous, and he was exactly the same on and off camera, and he just handled himself so well. He's such a mature. I don't know. You have to meet him to be able to kind of understand it, just how mature he is at his age. I think that's separating him from some of the other candidates right now in 28 is just his, like, I mean, you feel like you're talking to someone who's already in college when you talk to him. And then you throw in, he's got kind of they want the bigger bodied guys. And I know Julian Sayin is not. Julian's kind of got some special things with his arm. But Ohio State generally under Ryan Day, they like the bigger bodied guys. So he's got that. He's got mobility, which of course they really like. He's got a strong, accurate arm. So he's got the physical stuff, but I think the maturity is what separates him from like really good to special. And I think that's worn off on Ohio State. I think Ohio State's kind of rubbed off on him and his parents. 3 visits from Vero Beach, Florida since April or March, middle of March. 3 visits from there. And you're 28. Like, you haven't been anywhere else 3 times in that time frame, I don't believe. I don't think he's been anywhere else 3 times in that time frame. So, like, there's a lot going here that makes this feel like he could be emerging as their guy. But yet it is, like, early, and they're going to continue to evaluate. They're evaluating sophomore film right now, and I know they don't love to have to make a quarterback decision this early because of that. But it is an interesting – this is moving in an interesting direction from where I sit.
Okay. It does seem like – I mean, yeah, they don't like that. No, I mean, nobody does. But – seems like a pretty safe bet to think that this guy's going to be a pretty damn good college quarterback. It's interesting. We've not seen them yet have to go after, get into a big NIL battle on a quarterback yet, which is pretty interesting. We've seen everybody else have to do that. Buckeyes have been able to not really have to do it. Brady Edmonds certainly didn't turn out like that. I mean, it's been
cap space. They got the cap space 4 and 28. They can go out and
cap space, man.
We've talked about before, man. Well, we've talked about this before, though. Like, you can't. The days of like stacking 5-star quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just kind of letting them all wait their turn, and like that's over, man. You
done
with NIL and the pool. Like, no kid is going to sit and be no 5-star kid is going to sit and be the 3rd string quarterback for 2 or 3 years when they could be collecting $4 or $5 million a year somewhere else, and you're not going to pay your 3rd string quarterback $4 or $5 million a year. So like this notion of like just stacking 5-star quarterbacks over a 2 or 3 year period is out the window. So like the fact that they haven't really had to do that a lot lately, with where they've had to go for their quarterbacks and just the built-in loyalties to Ohio State of their last 2 quarterbacks, I think is going to help them be a player in 28 from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I also don't think Champ's going to be a straight NIL guy either. Like, you're going to have to be competitive, but like again, he's got 2 parents who played pro sports, like very grounded family. Like, you're going to have to be competitive. Like, I just preface everything I say about NIL with they have to be competitive. No one's taking a 50% discount to go anywhere. Yeah, but it's not going to be one of those things where Ohio State's offering me $2 million and school Y is offering me $2 million and $5. I'm going to take the extra $5 to go to that school because it's $5. It's not going to be that. But they're well positioned, I think, there.
Okay. And that will be our breakdown of the visitors that are uncommitted. But Mark and I did want to hit on the visits we took on Friday, as we usually each go take in a prospect, whether that be someone uncommitted or someone committed. We saw a couple of commits each in the 2026 class. I went to Pickerington Central as Jameer Brown and the Wayne Warriors came in to take on Pick Central. And that was the first time I've seen Jameer Brown play. And boy, it was something. He's put on some weight. I can say that for sure. He's thickening out. And that speed is something different. It's something electric. That's the fastest kid playing football in Ohio at a high level since Ted Ginn. I'm pretty sure of that. He is just he's on a different level, and he can be very versatile. He had a one-handed catch that he took in for a touchdown about 30 yards that got called back. And on that next play, the quarterback got thrown out for a play. I guess him and somebody on Pickerington got in a verbal spat. The refs threw them each out for a play, and it was like 3rd and goal from the 20. And Wayne just said, all right, line Jameer up at Wildcat. Jameer ran it in a run that ended with him plowing over a pretty big kid. So the physicality is there. The hands are there. The speed's there. But unlike Teddy at this age, he's shiftier. He's shiftier than Teddy was. Like, he is just looks more natural as a wide receiver, little jitterbug moves that Ted didn't really have, in my opinion, at that age. He's absolutely the number 1 dude.
I get a little nervous talking about him because I'm always the guy who tries to like rein it in a little bit. These kids get so much in their heads about how great they are, and things can happen, and one thing can lead to another, and you're no longer, a 5-star guy anymore. But he is the best high school wide receiver in Ohio that I've ever seen. It's so hard to go back to like Ted Ginn Jr. because he was essentially a high school quarterback who also could have been an elite corner. And I don't even think most people knew if he was going to be a receiver in college. Jameer is just so much more advanced than Teddy was at the same age. He's actually playing receiver. He's been a route runner. He's more physical. He's bigger. If you look at track times, he's faster. Like, so you say all that, and you're like, well, it should be easy. You should call him better than Ted Ginn Jr. But then he was like, that's Ted Ginn Jr., though. You're already saying he's going to be better than Ted. Like, how do you say that? But, like, it's not a hard argument to make that you would have to go beyond Ted Ginn Jr. to find the last Ohio high school football receiver as good as Jameer Brown.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And it's something. I will say, the coaching staff at Wayne, man, get the dude the ball. I don't know what you guys are doing. I want Ohio State went into that Texas game, and come hell or high water, there were 20 targets, and 10 of them went to their special wide receiver, the best in the country. And you got Jameer Brown. That should be the game plan, man. 50% of those targets better be going to number one. And that's always,
yeah. Like I always say, like it would always be difficult to be a high school coach in that situation, because it's like people don't like have to deal with parents, like you have to deal with other kids' parents and players on the team and everything like that. But like the instinct is just like, we have to get this guy the ball every play. And so it's always like so many of them put him at quarterback, Yeah. Like I always am like a little bit sympathetic toward coaches that have to try and weigh that dynamic. But yeah, I mean, every Jameer Brown touch is a good one. So
yeah,
he's something else.
Yeah. So nothing, no new revelations for me about Jameer, but let's talk about your game as you went to check out CJ Sana and Caden Gebhardt at Olentangy. And who do they play?
Perrysburg.
Okay. And they're a good team, right?
Yeah. They got a junior quarterback I got to look into a little bit more. Was a very good athlete with some size on him. And so I thought he had a really nice game. But CJ, here's what I like about CJ. And there's going to be some things that he's going to have to work on, and that's fine because this is only his second year playing. This is the second game of his second season playing linebacker. Mm-hmm. So there are things naturally you can't possibly be a completely finished product at that point. But the things I like about him are he gets downhill really well. When he decides he's going somewhere, he's going 100 miles an hour. He doesn't hesitate. He's very good sideline to sideline, which for a Mike linebacker is critical in today's game. Because if you're a Mike linebacker in today's game and then go sideline to sideline, you're not really playing a whole lot. So You're playing on 1st and 10 and 3rd and short, and that's about it. But I think he has the athleticism to be a 3-down linebacker. Certainly a tough kid, smart kid, has a little bit of I said this about Garrett Stover coming out, and Garrett was also a guy who kind of moved to linebacker late in his football playing career at the high school level. And sometimes they are playing so hard and so fast and so aggressive that they will run themselves out of a play.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that did happen on Friday night, but in terms of checking the physical boxes of sideline to sideline range, willingness to get in there and, be a torpedo and hit people, playing hard, playing, with some leadership. Those are all things that he does well. And James Laurinaitis will clean up the rest of that.
For sure. And heck, this kid also a big time Buckeye fan, loved the opportunity and can't wait. And that always carries a little weight to me, but yeah, he's got all the juice you need. So I'm really excited about that. Now watching him and Gebhardt together, really fun. Of course, we're talking about Caden Gebhardt, safety who committed to Clemson. Then Ohio State got Blaine Bradford. Matter of fact, let's roll into Blaine Bradford in a second here. But no, those two together, really fun. Unfortunately, you didn't get to see a game where they had a ton of fun. You were telling me earlier.
Yeah, it was, in the way the game kind of played out, especially in the second half, Olentangy was kind of running the ball, running the clock out. Caden, I've seen games where Caden's had more than 20 tackles. He just didn't. They ran a lot of quarterback power. Perrysburg did. So It wasn't really a great game for Caden to kind of showcase what I know he can do. But he is absolutely, that he's absolutely a very impressive player to me. I think Clemson's getting a great one.
Yeah, I'm disappointed about that. But how disappointed can you be when you went and got Blaine Bradford? Now, Blaine, obviously, got the his dad comes out and says got the pressure of Death Valley on him, and as of now, he's a Buckeye. It's going to be his choice, but we are it's dealing with the process, etc. Blaine, every time he is at Ohio State, you see that he just lights up. It's very clear that he loves Ohio State. Now, I fully believe that there are guys who love a school and end up going somewhere else because it just makes the most fiscal sense to do so. So, you could still love a place and end up somewhere else. Ultimately, I think this holds because I feel like Ohio State's in a situation where it's got to hold. It's got to. And I think that they'll make sure that it does. But a lot of people are worried about it, Mark. What is your opinion on it?
Look, I think my opinion is that he's going to stick. My opinion is that Ohio State is where he wants to be. My opinion is that his dad is very comfortable with that decision. And so I don't think you're going to have, a parent or two meddling, forcing him anywhere. And they're gonna pay. I mean, they're gonna do the NIL thing with him. They're not gonna be non-competitive in the NIL space with Blaine. He's been probably their top overall defensive target. I think if you told them you have one defensive player in this class, I think it would be Blaine Bradford. So that being said, I understand that people are, his brother's at LSU. He lives in Baton Rouge. Like, I understand if you're not going to feel comfortable about this until he's like physically in Columbus in January, lining up in winter conditioning drills. So, like, I understand all that. Here's my other thing, though. Where is the buzz actually coming from?
Right.
It's not Blaine. It's not his parents. Right?
No.
All the reporting is LSU is working okay. Mm-hmm. Where has Blaine?
Of course they are. Yeah,
right. Of course they are. Like, where has Blaine or anyone from his family said, "Yeah, we're still listening to LSU," or "We're still, we'll see what happens. Like, we're committed, but we're going to take visits." Like, where has any of that been from the Bradford camp? There has not been much, if any, of that type of stuff from the Bradford camp. So it's like, okay, where is this actually coming from? Is it kind of like LSU sort of trying to push the issue and cause some commotion? Because that's what schools do when they're fighting for a committed player. Where is this real buzz coming from? So I don't think, until I see something or hear something or talk to someone that tells me, yeah, this is like really serious right now between him and LSU, then I'm going to continue to think he's going to sign with Ohio State. But again, I understand everyone's nerves on this. I mean, it's a tough pull. Like the fact.
Let's be honest. It's one of the toughest.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Hands down, top 5 toughest recruit they've ever landed if this sticks. Yeah. I mean, kid's brother's at LSU. He's from a feeder school to LSU. He lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Everything says there's no chance in hell. I didn't even have him on my board, Mark. I would do safety reviews. I wouldn't even include him. And I knew he was their number 1 target. I wouldn't even include him because it was so ridiculous, right? Yeah. I thought people were stupid for bringing it up. We're wasting our time talking about this. Yeah, he's awesome, but he's not coming here. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, no, we've come this far. This is sticking. I don't think they let it loose. Anyway, anything in the chat that I got one here. Wheels and Levers. Hey, Juck, here to take the medicine. I know you're talking recruiting. We are, but I appreciate you coming to apologize. That's a Texas fan taking his medicine. He was talking all sorts of crap all week. It was a great game. I think that Texas will be very, very good this year, and I think Arch Manning will continue to get better. That was a really, really rough spot, man. I was in the stadium. It was the loudest, particularly that last drive, the loudest I've ever heard Ohio Stadium, and that is 2 games in a row. Tennessee and Texas, that it has been just an insane environment in the shoe. One at night, one at noon. I couldn't be more happy about that, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, look, they could have lost that game 14-7 and everything would be in front of them. They could still beat Michigan. They could still win the Big Ten. They could still get to the college football playoff and that, like all of that. But this just gives them they're so insulated now with that win. Like the things that would have to happen, knock on wood, the things that would have to happen these next couple months for them to miss the playoff, it's almost unimaginable at this point. They've put themselves in such a great situation. And I think the best thing to come out of it was, well, one, like Matt Patricia's game plan was incredible.
Yeah.
I think the people killing Arch right now are not giving Matt Patricia enough credit. Arch, even, Dan Orlovsky was breaking some stuff down on ESPN. He said Arch won't see a defense like this the rest of the year. Because there's so many NFL concepts that he would have never seen before. So that was like just a total chess match win for Ohio State. But again, Julian saying stats, whatever, like he was better than his stats showed, but that's fine.
For sure.
Stats or whatever. The moment was never too big for him. He never looked flustered. That is an incredibly good sign for them moving forward. It's a very good sign for them when they play Washington, which I think is a sneaky tough game.
Hell yeah.
When they go out there, it's a very good sign for when Penn State comes into the shoe later in the season. Like let's put it this way. If they would have won that game on Saturday, but Julian looked flustered and all over the place, I would be much more concerned than if they had lost that game and he looked the way he did on Saturday.
It's a good point. Yeah, for sure.
Because that's really going to dictate where this team goes. Because the defense is going to be really good. The receiver, we know about the receivers. Whether they win a championship or have a successful repeat or get back to a Final Four, whatever it might be, that a lot of that is going to hinge on Julian and his ability to grow up in these big moments and not have the moment be too big for him. And if it wasn't too big for him on Saturday, you do kind of wonder, well, is there just a moment is it even possible for the moment to be too big for him? Because he just looked like he was in a scrimmage. I mean, it just looked like
adjusting
watching him practice.
It
was watching him like watching him during team drills at practice. It looked the same.
He's a cool customer, man. He is a cool customer. So
and
great
then
stuff, Mark.
After the press conference after the game, I'm like, this guy just might be a sociopath. He's just like, completely like, just very, very professional, very, very prepared.
Yeah. It gives you a good feeling in knowing that the defense is going to be elite again. I think we can say that for sure. It gives him that much more time to come along at a nice, smooth pace as you ramp up as the season gets progressively harder. It's all setting up perfect. So fantastic stuff. We appreciate you all for joining us here at the Skull Session. You can come check us out at buckeyehuddle.com. Always, you can join the board there, become a member at buckeyehuddle.com where we hang out all day and talk football stuff with other Buckeyes. That's always an option for you, but come check us out anyway. We appreciate you for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. We're almost there. We're so close. So put us over the top. We appreciate you guys, and we'll be back to talk to you soon. We'll talk to you then. Have a good one, guys. Hey, it's Juck. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
Start